What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp. This is Fightful Wrestling. It is now November 20th, 2022. I am here for your AEW Full Gear post show. We are supposed to be joined by Julie Cutler. She's got some technical difficulties, hoping that we can bring her in during this show as she gets those straightened out. There's some connectivity issues, but I'm here to talk with you guys. I got a bunch of backstage news courtesy of FightfulSelect.com. And right now over on FightfulSelect.com, Alex Pawlowski has a live Sour Graps AEW Full Gear review. We also have the Scrum being streamed right now by Will Washington. But I've got notes from that Scrum right now, so you guys aren't going to miss a thing. As Fightful Select reported recently, AEW Revolution is confirmed for March 5th, the Chase Center in San Francisco. Originally, we had heard the Cow Palace, but later that evening after reporting that, we were told no, TV is going to be in the Cow Palace that week, Chase Center for Revolution. So back on the road on the West Coast for AEW, but we got so much to talk about. So much to talk about. Let's go ahead and get into it. Leave a thumbs up on this video. This is going to be a very interactive show, guys, because, again, flying solo, just found out for right now that I'd be solo. We'll see if we can get Julie Cutler in here. But leave a thumbs up. Get your super chats. Get your humper chats in. We would greatly appreciate it if you did such a thing. That would help us out an awful lot. Also, leave a comment on this video, like even after it's live streamed. But man, we got some notes from the Scrum immediately. MJF basically walked in, then walked out, said later. But we got Oscar Villanueva saying, I think they booked this pay-per-view to perfection. Very well needed reset from All Out. Now we can leave that shit behind. So on the Fightful Select preview show, which we do for every pay-per-view, Caden had a really good point. Caden said, well, I think they should probably do a very fan-friendly, fan-servicing type of show for AEW audiences. And I agree. After what all happened with All Out, it was like, man, you need something that does directly service the fans. You do need something that sends fans home happy. And that doesn't necessarily mean baby faces across the board, as we saw with some of the big talent there. But you do need something that switches things up a little bit, does promote some positivity as far as the booking goes. Viewership was down this week for both AEW and its lead-in. So I think they did some good things. Now, someone says, Julie can't join audio only at least. It's her internet connection. It's not her video connection. Otherwise, we just have her in audio only. If I see her in the backstage area, we're going to bring her right back in. If anybody from Fightful outside of our moderators and stuff want to hop on, in the meantime, that is also welcomed. But Tom says, the show's starting amazingly with the news of Takeshita being all elite, and it just kept getting better. The cage match, the trios, and that women's title match. Oh, man, Takeshita. The funny thing about Takeshita is, like, you see him now and you know he's going to be one of the guys in the future. You just know it. When Okada was in America, like, you couldn't really tell even then that he was going to be the guy. So, I mean, that's something that is telegraphed way out there. He gets it. He works really well. They did an interview with him on the pre-show. Tony Khan said that there is a visa situation with DDT talent that leads to them coming over quite frequently, which helped facilitate Kansuke Takeshita getting signed. So love that. I think that's fantastic. What a great pickup. He was so much like so clearly one of their guys. He fit with AEW just fine. Orion Ben says, pay-per-view 9 out of 10. I thought of Julie as Saraya came out. Julie called it Tuesday night that she'd be emotional. Just a fantastic night of performances. Again, we're hoping to get Julie in here ASAP. We'll see what we can do. But hey, you got me for right now. That's what's important. Jamal says, one of the best pay-per-views I've seen in a while. Survivor Series is going to have a hard time topping that. This pay-per-view just made the next Dynamite one of the most anticipated shows. So many compelling story. Tony Hayter, Edge's trios for me. That was a really nice crowning moment for Jamie Hayter, which I'm going to get into at length momentarily. But man, it's one of those things that it could have happened earlier, but I'm glad that it just happened when it did. I'm glad that it went down, and I'm glad that it finally did happen, because it's one of those that I said, a fan servicing moment where you didn't necessarily need the babyface to win, but Jamie kind of was the babyface, right? Even though she was doing heel tactics, she was who the crowd wanted to win. Zach, our dude, sending a monster super chat. That's a reminder, guys. Get in your super chats, get in your humper chats. I know some of you are here for the first time. You can go to humperchats.com. That's humperchats.com. You can leave your questions or statements before we go on the air. That's how you get them read or discussed on the air. Or you can do it here at youtube.com/Fightful. Just this week on this channel, we had interviews with Jake Something, with Eric Bischoff. That one made some buzz. And we have show reviews for every single night of the week. So check that out. Oh, look who it is. We got some backup here, finally. We got Julie.
I'm back.
We got Julie. Let me find your. There we go.
There we go. Now we're in business. Now we're cooking with gas here.
Before we even got into the matches, how about that? I mean,
perfect.
It's a tiny bit choppy, but compared to what we weren't working with earlier, we're gonna rock with it. Perfect. Zach says this is for Fightful. AEW does amazing work. The community is amazing. The mods and the work you do. This is for you all. Everyone should subscribe to Fightful Select. Get the stream to 1K likes, and I'll drop some YouTube memberships. Fightful till I die. Hey, I'm hoping Fightful Patreon will let us gift some Fightful Select memberships. I would love to see us back up above 11,000. We're right above 9,000 right now. I need somebody to get bit backstage. I reported on Fightful Select that Marco Stunt is backstage. So Marco, I need you to hit somebody in the face with a chair. I need you to bite somebody. I need you to save their dog. I need all the same things that were happening last time we were on the air together, Julie.
And let me tell you something. I'm pretty sure that we also made a promise last time we were on air that if we hit 10,000 subscribers on Fightful Select, that several of us on the Fightful team will promise to deliver some crazy things. My personal promise was that if we hit 10,000 subscribers on Fightful Select, I will do my own personal rendition of Judas by Fozzy. And I really want to sing you guys. So please
get us back over 10K and it'll happen. Get us back over 10K and it will happen.
I would really like to put on a musical performance. So for the sake of that alone, please subscribe.
JB Love said, not a super smart mark regarding the technical stuff, but as a fan of an in-ring story, tonight was a hell of a show in my book, Viva Murderhausen. Well, let's talk about that right out of the gate. Best Friends defeated the Factory. QT Marshall gets over everywhere he goes. This guy gets over everywhere. Cole Carter has an awful lot of upside, but this match was a setup to introduce sort of a new Danhausen, or a newer Danhausen that fans haven't seen. They haven't seen him stabbing people with spikes and bringing teeth to shove into people's mouths. What did you think of the newish Danhausen?
I honestly think that this new version of Danhausen is really what made the entire match. Honestly, like in regards to the entire pre-show, I thought that everything was basically what it needed to be. For this match in particular, I mean, I'm going to throw this out there. I haven't been a huge fan of the Factory as a stable in AEW in general, but I am a big fan of the Best Friends, and I'm a big fan of Orange Cassidy. I love how they incorporated Danhausen at the end. I did like how the Factory did the little hugging spot. Yeah. That was kind of a mocking the Best Friends. The one thing that I would have liked if they did like the full camera zoom, sure, like they normally do. I will say really quickly, because you had mentioned Cole Carter, I was very, very excited to see that they brought him into AEW after his NXT release, because I feel like he's so young and he has so much potential that I thought that AEW would be a really good opportunity to just let him be himself. I want to see him outside of the Factory. I think they have too many people kind of conglomerating into the factory right now. And I know you mentioned QT Marshall getting over a lot of different places. I don't know that being a part of this stable is really serving the other members well, especially someone with as much potential as Cole Carter. When I saw him do his little bit where he was dressed up with Sting, I thought that that was maybe setting him up to do something else with Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. And I want to see some sort of disintegration of that stable, or at least let him go his own way, because I think he's too young and has too much in him to sort of get lost in this stable. As a whole, I thought the match was exactly what it needed to be. I liked the teeth spot with Danhausen. I thought it was clever how they used the teeth in the match. So I won't go on too long about this one because we have a lot to cover. But I thought it was exactly what it needed to be to start up the pre-show and get people excited and sort of lure people in.
Yeah, I thought this was perfect for what it needed to be to establish that. The factory always do really, really well with getting heat. I thought this was a nice approach in the way that they do it. Justin Rivera says, just wanted to say I met Denise and Will tonight. Well, sorry, Justin. He says, she was great, shook my hand. This is also after she had an awful fan interaction, so it really speaks to how awesome she is. She did. She posted about it. Don't be fucking weirdos, guys. Like, nobody should feel uncomfortable in a wrestling setting, regardless of what their role is there. We've got Brent Lockman saying, teeth chant, 10 out of 10 crowd. Let 10 out of 10. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say AEW has gotten a lot of strange chants between teeth and between scissoring getting over and between the let's see, Ryan Nemeth and what I hit the
Wingman.
Wingman. I apologize. Yeah. I was going to say the name of their faction escapes me for some reason, but they were trying to do a let's touch tips chant. So between all of these different things, AEW has gotten a lot of really weird stuff over. I will say that.
We got Ricky Starks defeating Brian Cage. This might be my favorite Brian Cage in-ring run that I've seen. Like, I wasn't a big-time Brian Cage in-ring guy before. And this latest run, after he's been off TV for a year, my God, he's killing it. I did not expect to see Ricky Starks hit a Rochambeau. Fightfulselect.com and reported there's a bit of a miscommunication in what led to Starks not being cleared last week. But as far as the injury thing, he was just selling tonight. He's good to go. Ethan Page was on commentary. I do wish he could have had a pay-per-view match. But also, he's going to be in a very prominent role on this week's episode of Dynamite. Black and White Gaming says, do you think Ethan Page will win his finals match? If so, do you think he'll be victorious against Max? Considering the way that Max won, I think it's going to be Ricky Starks. We didn't see the firm involved, but maybe Ethan Page could do it, and that would lead to them having their match. We'll talk more about Ethan Page this Wednesday on the Post Dynamite show. But Starks and Cage, like that finish just blew me out of the water. Ricky Starks is so can't miss as a main eventer, Julie. He just gets it.
I agree with you. And I agree. I think that for Wednesday's matchup, I see Ricky Starks coming away with the victory. And I mean, I have to say Ethan Page has grown a lot on me as a performer, but I think that this one is going to be Ricky Starks. And I love that because especially now that we have MJF as a champion, which I know we'll get into much more in detail later, I love that we're seeing the creation of young and upcoming stars. I think AEW has the most unique combination between veterans and some really phenomenal young names. And I feel like now we're kind of getting, with the new champion, this new opportunity to sort of bring up other people with him to the level of stardom that they really deserve. One thing that I will say about this match, you had mentioned Brian Cage having this great new in-ring run. Something that I really appreciate about Brian Cage is I think for somebody his size, I think that sometimes there's sort of a style that you would expect for someone of his size. And I think later on in the show, we saw Wardlow and Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs. And I think that that's kind of like the style of wrestling that you would expect from someone that looks like him. But I feel like he's actually a little bit more technical than what you would expect for someone that has as much size as he has. And so I kind of like that. And I feel like that helps him be sort of a better match for Ricky Starks in terms of their in-ring capabilities. I feel like with a lot of guys his size, you'd kind of expect like big powerhouse moves, like quick match, do your finishing move until somebody dies. But that's not what you get from him. And I kind of like that it's a little bit unexpected.
I do too. And again, that finish, I did not see him going that route. I was very happy to see that.
I agree.
I was also very happy to see Eddie Kingston against Akiyama. I thought that Jun Akiyama would end up winning this just because of the kind of guy that Eddie Kingston is.
Yes.
And that this is one, I don't want to say an idol, but it's a guy who, when I interviewed Eddie Kingston, I said, Forbidden Door, what's your dream match? And he said, well, if it's Forbidden Door and it's any Forbidden Door, it's Akiyama, because that's who I grew up and who I wanted to face. But that didn't end up happening there. It did end up happening tonight. When they ended up booking the tag for last night, I was like, okay, well, that's a nice like consolation. But I was so glad they added this to 0 Hour, which is becoming the just let Eddie Kingston have matches he wants to have show.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool. And they did what they were going to do. They knocked the living shit out of each other. And another finish that I love, the spinning back fists. I loved it. Akiyama took it wonderfully. We got to see a ton of like exploder suplexes from deadlift variants and pump handles. I love that Eddie Kingston got this. Then he gets on the mic afterwards and starts to hype the pay-per-view. And he's like, don't worry, Excalibur can do this in 30 seconds. I'm going to take up some of his time. This was so much fun, Julie.
I thought it was really fun, too, because it made you feel, even if you were watching at home, the thing that I liked about him doing that was it kind of made you feel like you were part of the live audience at the show. Like, that's the kind of thing that you don't really see on TV very often. So I like the fact that they showed that. And it was interesting. I think Eddie Kingston, I love him as a promo. He's actually, when I met him in person too, he was a super nice guy. He kept referring to me as Mama, which I really appreciated. But I love him as a promo. I really liked in the little promo that he did with Renee before the match, just the raw emotion. You could, and even in the match as well, and afterwards, just his reaction, his emotional reaction in the ring, you could really see how much that match meant to him. I think it was nice to have on the pre-show. Clearly, there was a very meaningful story. I almost feel like you could have done more to sort of hype up the story, but I realize, with the context of the pre-show, you really only have so much time to like create a video package to do that. Just because they talked about Eddie Kingston's background, they talked about him at age 18 and how wrestling was kind of what changed the trajectory of his life. And this match was kind of the culmination of all of that. And like you said, they basically just kind of had a slobber knocker.
Yes. It was exactly what it should have been. That's what we expected to see.
That's how I felt too. And just the show of respect. At the end of the match, it was very classic Eddie Kingston. And I mean, all in all, I just felt like the pre-show as a whole was, it wasn't anything crazy. There was plenty of exciting stuff on the main show that, we didn't really need to get too crazy on the pre-show, but I felt like this was a good, sort of get everybody emotionally invested in what's going on before the main show started.
Yeah, I agree. A wonderful pre-show. Now, I mean, granted, I don't necessarily need to see 5 straight hours of wrestling. That's me. But it was 5 straight hours of really good wrestling. Sawyer says, Eddie Kingston, that's the super chat. Joey Bag of Donuts says, in the long list of AEW wrestlers that deserve a push or even some airtime, put Eddie Kingston near the top of the list. Man, he's on that list. I'm going to have updates on several people that are missing from TV. I'm going to have several contract updates on FightfulSelect.com. The best $5 in the business. check it out. I've got a bunch of notes, backstage notes that we ran today, including an act that didn't pop up on the pay-per-view. I'll tell you a little bit about it later, but Shot Kid says that might be my favorite pay-per-view of the year. Every match was good to great. Happy with all the results. Curious about what's to come in AEW. Also want Eddie to hype pay-per-views on every pre-show now after that promo. Me too. It was fun and it was endearing, and it did make me go like, okay, that was cool. That was different. And yeah, I didn't think there were any bad matches tonight. I mean, there were some that weren't great compared to others, but I think that this was a whole lot of fun, this show. But
I totally agree. I was legitimately very excited for this show because there were maybe 2 matches that I felt were just okay in comparison to some of the others. But other than that, everything else I was legitimately very excited for. I also think that between all of the championships in AEW and now ROH, there were a lot of matches that had high stakes to them. It just felt like we had championship match after championship match after championship match for 5 hours, which,
yeah,
as a paying customer, I think that that's pretty cool. I realize that, in the past we've had the general complaint being just how long AEW's pay-per-views are. I think for having, only 4 of them a year, and I think that, for someone who's spending $50 to watch, I personally don't mind it being that long. I appreciate it for this show. I feel like there was less content that felt like it could be on a Dynamite or a Rampage, and more that felt like it was fitting for the pay-per-view.
So the main card, man, it started with a banger. Steel cage match. Jungle Boy Jack Perry against Luchasaurus. Christian gets kicked out with the quickness, but that opens up the cage door. And what happens when they open up the cage door? Jungle Boy gets busted wide open. He's bleeding all over the place. It was a lot of blood on his face, but it wasn't like pooling everywhere. But there was a lot of cool interaction outside the cage. They ended up going back in, and they just threw everything at the wall. Now, if this would have ended any, like there were 4 or 5 times when even in the moment I was like, this should have ended. But no, by the actual end of the match, I'm glad that it ended the way that it did. There were tombstones and reverse power bombs and Canadian destroyers and pile drivers and all kinds of stuff. And any one of those, I would have been sold on the finish. The unprettier on the chair would have been sold on the finish, would have been fine with it. Then they went flying elbow drop off the top of the cage, snare trap, and there was this awesome moment. I don't know what the hell it was that Luchasaurus had in his mouth, but he like spit out blood or something. I'm assuming it was just worked blood. I haven't heard of anything remarkably or like remotely close to that yet, but it added so much to that finish after all that they had been through, Julie. You've got Luchasaurus stuck in this submission hold, and he's just like, blah. Like he is extinct at this point.
I thought that, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
I loved this as a start to the show. I love when they start pay-per-views off with a banger that you feel like shouldn't be the first match, but then they kind of surprise you and you're like, oh, this is the first match. Like, I wouldn't have expected you to start with this. So I always appreciate like that little bit of shock factor of like, oh my God, they're going to start the show with this, because that sets the bar very high. So I liked where they placed it in the card. I kind of figured right off the bat that Jungle Boy was going to get the win, because I felt like that was the only way that made sense in order to eventually set him up to take on Christian. So I figured that was probably going to be the outcome, and I feel like they got the outcome right, which I appreciated. I was a little bit surprised, I will say, that he submitted Luchasaurus. I wasn't expecting that, because I was kind of thinking, just because of the size difference between the two, Luchasaurus being, one of the giants in AEW, I figured that they were going to want him to lose in a way that still made him look strong. Yeah. So I was a little surprised that he submitted, but
after all that, I didn't really mind though. Like they went through so much, like the unpretty or the pile drivers, the elbow drop, the snare trap. There was so much that happened in that.
I agree with that.
That's one, like I always love the Randy. Yeah, I love the Randy Savage method. He said, win them in the ring, lose them in the ring. As you know, everybody, if they look competent, it's okay. Sometimes great wrestlers lose to other great wrestlers, and I'm okay with that. I'm completely fine with that. I thought that Jungle Boy, or Jack Perry, as he was called tonight, came out looking great. And Goth Piledriver said it was fossil fuel. Very clever.
Can I just say really quickly, Jungle Boy has beautiful hair. I have to give a shout out to the AEW Glam Squad as well.
Hello, family!
For the way that they styled it tonight, because, I mean, he has more beautiful hair than like a lot of women.
Did you see his sisters? Did you see like his family?
That family is genetically blessed.
No, when aliens invade our planet, they're just going to show up at the Perry house, take a couple strands of hair, and they're like, we're good. No war. We just want the secret. We want the DNA sample for this hair. That's it. They've got masterful hair.
I loved his hair. I like anytime people pull out the pay-per-view gear. I loved the gear. They had, like you said, a lot of really special moments in this match. I think there was a Canadian destroyer that he had done catapulting himself off of the steel chair, and then also the elbow drop moment was kind of cool because, well, I mean, obviously it's a very impressive spot, but there was also that moment, Jungle Boy being the technician, high-flying technician that he is, there was that moment when he gets to the top of the cage and you're wondering, what's he going to pull out? And the fact that it was an elbow drop, it was simple, to the point, went right through the table. I liked it.
Brent Lockman says, think Christian was dressed like Paul Bearer on purpose with the red suit. There were some real Kane vibes with Luchasaurus tonight. Some real Kane vibes. But I think it was just a coincidence. But yeah, I think that it was just by circumstance. But
I did absolutely love the way when he got ejected. I loved the way that they had to just drag him away like a 7-year-old and he's flailing. I thought the Christian as a heel works very, very well for me. I love the way that he sold that part of the match. Yeah.
Oh man, this is going to be one that we get probably a lot of interaction on. The Elite are back. They have Wayward Son by Kansas as a name.
Man.
Now, here's an interesting aspect of this. A lot of people were wondering, well, how are the Elite going to handle being at the scrum? How are they going to handle answering questions after they win these trios titles? Because if they win those trios titles, it's going to be hard to not have them there. Well, guess what? They probably ain't going to be at the scrum because they didn't win the match. I was shocked.
I was shocked by that too.
Shocked. I thought for sure we were going to see this. Lights off, lights on, House of Black. I thought that's what was going to happen. None of that happened. The Elite lose. A best of 7 series all the way into January has been announced. Jamal says, please give me House of Black. Well, FightfulSelect.com reported this weekend. House of Black were there this weekend. Malachi and Buddy, I know for sure. And then I was told this afternoon that Julia and Brody were supposedly around as well. I know Malachi was there. Don't know in what capacity. Maybe he was having a discussion. I don't know. Don't want to speculate. But that made me certainly think it's happening imminently. I do think that it's... So I've got a lot of mixed thoughts here because, first off, I don't know if the titles are on the line with each match. Like, can they switch back and forth? But the match itself, unbelievable. But let's start from the entrance. Kansas, Wayward Son. This is something the Young Bucks have pushed for quite a while. I think they've made this public, but it's something I was told that they had pushed for. Doug says, will Wayward Son be permanent or a one-time thing? I think we'll probably get an answer to that during the scrum, and I'm waiting for some notes. But Kansas promoted it on their Twitter even. Like, they put it out there. It's like the 43-year anniversary of that being released as a single. But from an entrance standpoint, what an epic return, Julie.
Yes, the first thing that I thought when I heard them come out to carry on My Wayward Son, I was wondering, how much money did Tony Khan spend on the rights to this music? My thought is, I kind of want to just see it as like a one-time thing. I guess we'll find out as the series goes on whether or not they use it again. I thought it was an epic entrance. Honestly, anytime you put the Elite and Death Triangle in the ring together, no matter how many times you put them in the ring together, any combination of these guys that you put together, you know it's like banger alert. You know that it is a banger waiting to happen. And so I was very excited to see that the Elite was coming back. And then as soon as I saw they were facing Death Triangle, I was just like, this match is going to be hook, line, and sinker, which it was. And I was fully expecting the Elite to win the titles back upon their comeback. And so I was actually I was surprised by the ending, but I thought that they did it in a very clever way. Incorporating the hammer. I mean, there were just so many, every match that these guys have together, there's just so many special moments. I feel like as I'm watching, I'm trying to make notes in my head to myself as to like which spots I want to talk about when we do this show together.
Sure.
And it just gets to the point where these guys work so fast and they have so many high spots that it's hard to even keep those mental notes because that's just their style.
Oh yeah, I will hit bullet points on some of that stuff, but like for a while in Fightful, we did like play by play essentially of it, and it's like if people want that, they'll just watch the match. But
Exactly.
I'll tell you the spot right out of the gate I love. Nick Jackson flying to the outside, and somebody just casually hands him a drink, and I think he looked at him.
Goodness.
I think he looked at him and he goes, "Is it diet?"
I saw him. I was kind of wondering about that too, because I was like, oh dear God. I was like, what? I was like, that is very very bold of him to accept. But I mean, from a comedic standpoint, as someone watching, it was hilarious. There were a lot of little things, like just in the way that the Elite presents themselves. I was getting a kick out of the fact that Brandon Cutler holds his own little camera outside of the ring.
Yeah, and he's vlogging.
Okay, because I was like, what? You're filming one of your teammates in a submission hold on your own separate
Well, yeah, he's vlogging for being the Elite. So whenever you see that ringside footage, that's legitimately Brandon Cutler filming that at ringside. And that is legitimately a part of his AEW contract, is that he produces digital content for them for that show.
I do follow being the Elite to some degree.
Yeah.
But there was part of me that was wondering, like, how much of that is legitimate and how much of that is just Brandon Cutler being Brandon Cutler. And then we get, Don Callis with the sparkly shoes. And I love having him back on commentary too, because I feel like he is the perfect balance of like actually being good at commentary, like actually fitting in well with the commentary team, but then also hyping up his own guys and like just getting in like the right little comments about his own guys. So I was just really glad to have them back. I loved Kenny's gear. I loved that he brought out some pay-per-view gear. He looked phenomenal. He looked like he was in phenomenal shape. Like he hadn't missed a step. He'd still been working. And like I said, I was really surprised. I was surprised by the ending of this match, but I think they did it in just the right way, because I feel like with the Elite having been gone for a while and under the circumstances that they left under, I feel like it was sort of the assumption that, okay, if they're coming back, they're going to get their titles back. So if there was any way to sort of have a surprise outcome, I feel like this was a smart way of doing it, where you didn't give them a clean loss that just sort of buried their comeback. And then the fact that they're following it up with the best of 7, it gives them the opportunity to get their titles back, to get that chance at a comeback. But it also just gives us an opportunity to see banger matches for 7 weeks. I don't know if I have to double check the dates. I don't know if they're all consecutive.
Well, let's get into, before we get into that, we'll break it down by the actual match. But there was a threaded story throughout the last few weeks in that Pac wanted Rey Fenix to like cheat, use the hammer, all that stuff. That's similar to what we saw with Keith Lee and Swerve later on and throughout their team. However, Rey Fenix gave in and shocked everybody, shocked the audience. It was amazing. I did not expect to see the Elite lose, much less Rey Fenix do it that way. I thought that was just an unbelievable finish. It was a great finish. It got the right kind of reaction. It was shock. I don't know if I don't know yet how I feel about the Elite losing. Immediately I was like, oh, wow, well, maybe Omega goes into a top title picture. No, they're going to do the best of 7. I do like that, okay, the Elite are back, so it doesn't feel like a holding pattern anymore. Because I know a lot of people were like, well, anybody they establish as a trio, yada, yada, until the Elite get back, it'll be like a holding pattern. Well, now everybody knows the drill. Everybody knows that the champions and the Elite are in this best of 7. Right now, you've got the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. If they ever want to do trios, they can. You got Best Friends. You got Blackpool Combat Club, Dark Order, Death Triangle, the Elite, the Factory, the Firm, Jericho Appreciation Society, Wardlow and FTR can team up. You got Sanjay, Satnam, and Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. Sanjay probably won't be wrestling, but Jeff Jarrett will. You got the Trustbusters, the Wingmen. You do have some options there. House of Black will be back sooner than later by the looks of it. So when I look at that, also Hardy and Private Party have continued to do stuff together. So now, yeah, you've got LFI, you've got an awful lot of people that you can lean into and do some cool stuff with that maybe you didn't have for a while, because you didn't have two big ones. You didn't have the Elite, you didn't have House of Black for a very long time, for a few months, and that hurt. That really hurt. But you're getting them back, so things are looking good, Julie. I thought we were going to see House of Black tonight. I thought for sure we were.
I hadn't thought about that. I've been following all the vignettes that they've been releasing over the past several weeks, so that we know that they're coming back, which I'm very, very glad about, because I feel like they have so much more untapped potential as a group. I didn't mind that they didn't come back tonight, just because the Elite was just making their comeback. And I kind of wanted to see what happened between these two teams sort of organically. I don't mind taking a little bit more time to continue hyping up the House of Black with these vignettes and kind of letting the Elite and Death Triangle do their thing, especially because I'm wondering, with this best of 7, with the amount of content that they put into all of their matches, I'm really curious as to how they're going to keep doing this and making it feel fresh every single time. But I think if there are any two teams to do it, I feel like these are your two teams. So I don't mind giving the House of Black a little bit more time to kind of simmer and just keep teasing us and keep teasing their comeback. And then when they do make the comeback, really make an impact. I didn't mind that it wasn't tonight, just because there was so much else going on. I don't mind waiting for them to have a really big, impactful boom whenever they do come back.
Our friend Colin says the best of 7 is not consecutive because they're missing the Seattle date on January 4th. I'm upset, but not much, because Death Triangle and the Elite have never had a bad match. So that's the thing. Like, I'm not a fan of repeated the same match over and over and over again. I liked an idea that I saw of adding a stipulation to each match. And I had mentioned earlier, like, well, is each one for the title? Can it switch back and forth? I think that's how the U.S. title one was with Benoit and Booker. I can't really remember. But and somebody said, oh, no, whoever wins the series gets the title. Well, the title was on the line in match 1. Tonight counted. Yes. But that's not the only night that they're skipping. They're doing tonight. They're doing this Wednesday, next Wednesday. Then they're skipping December 7th. So none December 7th. 14th, 21st, 28th all have matches, and that includes Winter is Coming, Holiday Bash, New Year's Smash, 3 straight special events. Then there's none on December or January 4th. Well, guess what happens every year on January 4th? Tokyo Dome, New Japan Pro Wrestling. That makes me wonder, Or maybe they headed over there. Are we maybe going to finally see Omega and the Bucks back over in New Japan? Could that happen? I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting that they aren't doing that date of all the dates. But very, very interesting. And I think that they will make these matches unique enough, different enough to where they will satisfy me. And plus, I've missed them so much. I've missed the Elite in the ring so much. Kenny Omega looked like $1,000,000. This guy had vertigo and a pretty bad like leg injury and a sports hernia and a shoulder injury. And he's had effectively 1 full year to heal up finally after all those injuries. Joey Bag of Donuts says he hoped the Elite were going to show up in Target uniforms. Oh, boy. Sawyer says, after nearly a decade of fans chanting CM Punk to troll the promotion, tonight had fuck CM Punk chants. It was surreal. The future of wrestling looks bright. The Elite is back, baby. Listen, I love CM Punk as a performer. He's one of my favorite performers of all time. From an interview perspective, I can't say that I agree with how he handled the scrum. I thought he handled it poorly. However, I will say this. Anytime that guy talks into a microphone, I am fascinated with what he is going to say, what he might say, what's on his mind. He keeps me glued to the screen. That being said, I would not trade potentially 7 years of in-ring with Kenny Omega, maybe 10 out of Nick, 8 out of Matt, and then whatever they can do from an executive standpoint after that for maybe a couple more years of CM Punk. I would not have done that. My hope is that CM Punk looks at this and he goes, yeah, I went too far at the scrum. I don't know whose fault the fight was because I wasn't there, but I hope that he looks at that and says, you know what? I went too far at the scrum, but I'd like to make millions of dollars off of me going too far at the scrum. Let me make good with these people, because that would make the most interesting story in AEW history. Do I believe it's going to happen? No, I don't. But what did you think of fuck CM Punk chants, Julie?
Well, I have to say I agree with a lot of what you just said. I think that if there was some way that he, decided that he wanted to make amends and come back and turn a lot of this into story, I think historically we always see that some of the best stories in wrestling are things that are based off of real life beef that sort of blend that line between how real is this and where are they starting to play us a little bit. Do I think that's going to happen? I do not foresee that happening, especially a couple weeks ago when Chris Jericho had issued his challenge to any former ROH champion, and that former champion ended up being Colt Cabana. I kind of felt like that was a message, a clear message where I don't see that happening anytime soon. I will say that, after losing Cody earlier this year, and then after not having a period of time without MJF, having a period of time without the Elite, I felt like there were just so many people that felt like staples to this company that had been gone, where when I started seeing the vignettes for the Elite returning, it was like a sigh of relief. It's like, oh my gosh, like these people are like the heart and soul of AEW. I was a little bit surprised by the CM Punk chants, I have to say. I guess in the context of that match, I know why people were doing that, but sure. I will say I agree with you. I'm very fascinated anytime CM Punk speaks, because I feel like he has a very unique point of view. Anytime he says something positive about someone, I remember specifically at the media scrum, he had mentioned Adam Cole being a sweetheart. I was like, Adam Cole must be a really nice guy.
Well, he's the nicest guy. Like, so I was like,
nice. If that's coming, I was like, if CM Punk thinks that he's a sweetheart, then I will take that very seriously. I think that any positive feedback that he has to say about anybody, I feel like is something to be taken to heart. Did he go too far at the media scrum? It was just a little bit weird, because I felt like he was coming from this perspective of, I don't want to talk about these previous issues, but when I went back and watched it, I was like, no one's really pressing you to talk about this. Like, you're kind of talking about this on your own.
It was all, he came in there with
Right.
a promo
So
plan.
I thought that it was, I feel like he jumped to an assumption based on who he was speaking to when he really wasn't being pressed for that information. So I just felt like watching it back, I was like, this is odd, because we were streaming together the night that happened. And so I was kind of getting bits and pieces of information in real time. I had to go back and watch it all myself afterwards. And when I watched it afterwards, I was kind of thinking, this doesn't quite make sense, because I feel like nobody is trying to reel this troubling information out of him. I felt like he was very much volunteering it on his own.
We have a couple more super chats. Reminder, guys, get them in. Chi-Town Spurs says, totally spitballing here. I'm worried about House of Black coming back to the Elite. Could hurt if they lose. A really good return feud could be best friends. Maybe have Malachi win the All-Atlantic. Possibly. Later on, we had Orange Cassidy challenge Jake Hager to an All-Atlantic match, which was amazing because they joked about the hat, and Orange Cassidy was like, it is a cool hat. I thought that was a great touch. I think that Malachi and those guys playing a foil to best friends could be a really fun one as well. We've got to have some establishment in the trios, though.
I agree. I also wanted to add really quickly to that segment. I like that later on when they advertised the All-Atlantic Championship match, that they actually had Jake Hager wearing that same hat in the
Yes.
match. I thought that was a nice touch.
That was good. Shot Kid says, thinking on it, I love Death Triangle winning. I was concerned about rushing right into a House of Black Elite feud if the Elite won outright. Now they can actually build to it, deliver more banger matches, and build the eventual Death Triangle split in this series. What AEW has done a really good job of, Shot Kid, is if there's an interim champion or if somebody is stripped of a title and somebody else wins a title and they're a placeholder, AEW has done a good job of saying, no, they're not really placeholders. In fact, they're just as good as the actual champions. Unfortunately, Nyla wasn't, because she stole that championship from Jade. Jade came out in great Thundercats gear, just great Thundercats gear.
She always looks like a star. I will say.
She always looks like an actual superhero, like a real action figure.
I thought this is another one I have to give props to the AEW Glam Squad, because the fact that they used body paint as part of her gear was very cool and very unique.
And Nyla comes out with Vicky and Marina, and there's an Eddie Guerrero tribute. That was touching as always, but I liked this match. It was, I think, what it needed to be. I mean, this was not going to be like a 20-minute match, but I liked what it was. Jade stealing Nyla's move, Nyla stealing Jade's move. There was the element of taking something from the other person that had prefaced this match that I think was lost on some people. And I thought that was a really, really nice touch, because Jade is like, you took something of mine, I'm going to take something of yours and beat you with it, but it didn't get the job done. Eventually, Jade did get the job done. I think the baddies are a great addition. They have missed a little something without Stokely. I think that Stokely being added to them was great. It gave them a voice that wasn't Jade's. But this was good. This was one of Jade's first big feuds. I know a lot of people didn't like the title stealing aspect of this. I did, because it finally let Nyla Rose step out from just being the native beast that we see that hits big moves and all that. And we got to see the personality of Nyla that any of us that have been around her have seen. Like, she is so funny. She's so charming. She's so entertaining. And I'm glad that they did that to establish this. Ultimately, this feud was like number 3, like as far as like attention given for the women. So I think that doing this for this feud worked out. And I thought the match was what it needed to be. 2 powerhouses going at it for 8 minutes with Jade winning.
I agree. I was a little bit worried at first when I saw the placement in the match card, just because it was after the Elite and Death Triangle, because anything is going to have a hard time following that. And so I was a little bit worried, because I feel like there were other stories that had been hyped up more, that I was expecting more from. I was kind of like, oh, is this the right placement in the card for this match? But in hindsight, I think it worked out okay because, like you said, I feel like it was kind of just what it needed to be. And I feel like following the Elite and Death Triangle, it was so fast paced that I feel like the crowd just kind of needed something where we could kind of simmer down a little bit. And so I feel like this was kind of the right match for that. I also appreciated the fact that I feel like Jade has had so many squash matches with people. She's had so many matches where you don't really feel like her opponent has a legitimate chance against her. And I feel like the way that they built up this story, and also just the fact that Nyla is someone who is more comparable to Jade just in her stature. I felt like, okay, like these two women are going to have a legitimate wrestling match. And I felt like that's exactly what they did. I felt like Jade, like we said, she always looks like a superstar. I felt like Nyla held her own against her more so, I think, than anybody else that I've seen. I've been kind of in my mind battling this ongoing question of when is Jade going to lose and who the hell is she ever going to lose to? And I think that this match kind of pulls me closer to that actually being something that could realistically happen.
Yeah.
I liked that it wasn't just like a one and done and that there was actually more back and forth before she secured the victory. I also appreciated the fact that there were 3 women's matches on this card, and the fact that I felt like each one, like every single one, had pretty good story build up to it. I feel like we've seen a lot of growth in the women's division these past couple of years, and I feel like there's still more growth that needs to happen, just being that AEW's a newer company. But I feel like this show is a testament to the progress that they have made.
Brent says, what I loved about this feud is Nyla has jokes, but she's also a killing machine when she wants to be, and that showed tonight. Yes, there are a few things, Brent, that I dislike more than when somebody goes, oh, they're supposed to be this intimidating person, but they're making jokes. Yeah, Daniel Cormier was one of the best fighters of all time, and he danced in his underwear with chicken and ice cream. Like, Big E is so funny, but he's also a tough son of a bitch. Like, it's okay to have personality. Not everybody is going to be Brock Lesnar 02 or Goldberg 98. It's not the way that everybody needs to be. Let people let their personality shine. I'm completely with you, Brent. And, you know, if you want to let your personality shine, but you don't want people finding out a lot more about you, NordVPN.com/Fightful. Oh my gosh, I've got the old graphic. No, I don't. 4 additional months free. 30-day money-back guarantee. Change your virtual location with just one click on the fastest VPN in the world. You can get pay-per-views like the one tonight at a much more affordable rate with NordVPN.com/Fightful. Just change your virtual location, get access to content in different areas, and save. You're going to end up paying for the price of your Nord subscription with the savings. I got last weekend's UFC pay-per-view at a much more affordable rate. Next weekend, I'm going to be in Winston-Salem, but I'm going to be watching WWE pay-per-view on the WWE network because I got that stuff through Canada. I miss that interface so much, and NordVPN.com/Fightful allows me to get it, and it allows you to block online trackers, malware, and annoying pop-up ads. And it's going to help me when I'm on that hotel Wi-Fi, that airport Wi-Fi. You don't want to be unprotected on that stuff. You don't want anybody getting access to your private data. NordVPN.com/Fightful works on all your devices, phone, laptop, desktop, PC, router, all that good stuff. See, Julie was about to show us all her stuff. Her camera roll was open. You don't know what was going to be on there, but she's going to get NordVPN.com/Fightful to keep you creepos out of it. NordVPN.com/Fightful. Man, a good show got even better. Chris Jericho defeated Claudio, Sammy, and Bryan Danielson. I knew this match was going to be a slapper. I just knew it. Bryan Danielson is on top of his game. Chris Jericho is having the best in-ring year of his of man, one of his best in-ring career years ever. Claudio is unreal, and Sammy had an unreal performance on pay-per-view. Sometimes, because of the way that Sammy acts on TV as a heel, or the things that Sammy says, or the stuff he gets into backstage, you forget how talented he is. And he had an amazing performance tonight. The finish tonight was amazing, and I loved this dynamic. You had a fatal four-way between two sets of partners, but some friction between all of them. But with Brian and Claudio, it's just business. They are a part of the Blackpool Combat Club, which has always valued winning over friendship, regardless. That's how they are what they are. Now we don't know what the hell's going to become of Blackpool Combat Club. We'll talk about that later. But Sammy and Jericho went at it a couple times. Sammy hit the code breaker on Jericho. There was a lot of great little, I learned this from you type of aspects, because Sammy's been with Jericho for the last 3+ years, Julie. I thought this match was amazing. One of my favorite matches of the night.
I completely agree. I think the thing that I was most intrigued about by this match, I mean, every single guy you had in there, I mean, Danielson and Claudio, I just think are both complete technicians. And like you said, Sammy, despite his exuberant personality that he has, he's very special. He's fearless when it comes to a lot of the things that he's done in the ring, and in some of the sort of special stipulation matches that he's done, some of the cinematic matches that he's done. Sometimes I almost forget the repertoire that he's built up these past couple of years with Stadium Stampede and the match that he did at the Hardy compound. He's someone who has put his body on the line in absolutely insane ways for our entertainment. And Jericho too. The reason that Jericho is one of my all-time favorites is the fact that he constantly reinvents himself throughout the duration of his career, and he always does it in a way that's brilliant. So you have 4 guys right off the bat that bring everything to the table. The thing that I was most intrigued by was the fact that you have the 2 sets of partners. And I think when you see, like you said, the interaction between Claudio and Brian Danielson, you see that they kind of make that contact, and they're kind of like, okay, like, we're on the same team, but business is business, and we're going to do what we have to do. But with Jericho and Sammy, it's this different dynamic of, Jericho thinks that Sammy is safe to have in the match with him because he thinks that Sammy's going to, quote unquote, do the right thing. But Sammy's not about to lay down and die for anybody. So
Sure.
I think that was the most interesting thing for me. I kind of had a feeling that Jericho is probably going to retain, because I don't know that anybody else really needed the win, the title win at the moment. And I think that he is doing well with it right now, having the title and also doing everything that he's doing with the Jericho Appreciation Society. And so I was most curious to kind of see what seeds this planted between him and Sammy, and then how they're going to let that unfold in the upcoming weeks, how that's going to impact the Jericho Appreciation Society long term. Is this going to be their demise? Is this going to lead to potentially another pay-per-view match down the road? So I think that this was good in terms of planting those seeds. And I think at this point, it's still really early to really tell what exactly they're planning on doing with that. But I think that this was the start of something potentially.
We've got some scrum notes. By the way, Jericho is challenged by Tomohiro Ishii for Dynamite. That is incredible. Can't wait for that. But we've got some notes. Tony Khan says, I believe it's to Nick Hausman, that he did not get asked by CM Punk to kick Colt Cabana out of the locker room. That didn't happen. Said that just booking Colt against working Jericho was a Jericho idea, and he thought it was a logical one. We've got some more notes from the scrum as well, especially with Saraya momentarily. But He's having conversations with New Japan about AEW guys appearing at Wrestle Kingdom. He's optimistic they'll have some presence, but the top stars will need to stay stateside. So, I mean, maybe that rules out Elite and Young Bucks, but I mean, FTR are going to be there. They weren't on the show tonight. There's all kinds of people that won't need to be on that specific episode of Dynamite, I think. But we'll see. We'll see. Tony also confirms the Elite have resumed their roles as EVPs. Jack Perry says that he's not going to be Jungle Boy full on anymore. He said that while he wasn't necessarily comfortable initially with Jim Ross calling him Jack Perry because he wanted to keep his private life sort of away, he wasn't going to go up to Jim Ross of all people and be like, hey, don't call me that, bud. And it ended up helping out an awful lot. But yeah, we've got plenty of notes coming from this scrum. But man, just what a wild night. Rye Gillian sends a super chat. Make sure you get in your super chats or humper chats if you want your question or statement read on the air. That's how you get it done. Humperchats.com or here on YouTube. And he says, hey guys, I can't emphasize how much I was relieved to see no new debuts tonight. Those surprises are always nice, but AEW has a wealth of riches, and I'm glad they focused on who they currently have. There's so much to build around. K, love you guys. Bye. Well, me too. Instead, I mean, you got the in-ring debut of Saraya. You got the in-ring return of the Elite. You've got TNT title change, women's title change, world title change. I think that's enough. One of those was Saraya, who says that she's going to be doing more character work in the coming weeks and months, but she's just happy to be back in the ring. She's going to be doing heat, electric, pressure point therapy every time she's at TV. And she kind of stepped out of character at the scrum and said that Britt helped her a lot, says that she's a star, and that Britt carried her through the whole experience, including the promos. Well, this match, I also think, is what it needed to be, but I think that Britt Baker did carry Saraya through this. And I don't think there's any shame in that because Saraya has not wrestled in 5 years. And even though it looks like 5 years on the surface, Julie, she was back for a month. It's really been 6.5 years since she has been in the regular groove of wrestling. And Dr. Britt Baker is doing all this while being a dentist. She's cutting these promos. She's making Paige or Saraya step up from doing the, oh, your name rhymes with shit type of stuff that didn't work in WWE, but it's the stuff that was written for her in WWE, and making her go the other route, pushing her further and further. Now, this match wasn't like, it ain't the Elite and Lucha Brothers and Pac. This was a cerebral match where Dr. Britt Baker DMD repeatedly worked over the injured neck of Saraya. And Saraya would play the hits. She did what is now, I think it's called the nightcap. It was the page turner. And she ended up hitting a couple rampages to win this. This was largely Dr. Britt Baker DMD leading. And I think that's a good thing because Dr. Britt Baker's whole career has pretty much taken place in the time that Saraya has been gone. Like, I think it's almost exclusively for the most part. And you had Jim Ross on commentary being like, oh, well, Saraya is a 16-year veteran. And I'm like, no, not really. She's not. Because she didn't wrestle for 6.5 of those years. So she's like a decade in, but she ain't wrestled at all lately. So I think that having Britt Baker lead this match was the right move. For some people, they're not going to like the pace. For some people, they're going to say, oh, that's sloppy. Saraya's going to have some ring rust. I got no problem with that whatsoever. This is not Sting doing a tag match and jumping off some wild shit while he's got other people to help him out. Saraya is having her first match in 5 years. I thought this was good for what it needed to be. I would not have hated Britt Baker winning, though. I think that there would have been a really good story to be told in that, no, actually, Saraya was wrong. Britt Baker is a star. She is everything that she says. And now Saraya has something else to rebuild on. She talked about all that she had overcome, her drug addiction, her abusive relationship, her injuries, some mental issues. This is another thing for her to overcome. I would have loved for that to like lead to something on Wednesday where she's like, you know what? maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. And then maybe she gets somebody a little bit more or on her side that's like, no, not only should you do this, you should do this because you're the reason I'm doing this type of thing. I want to know your feelings on the match, how it went, how you thought Saraya looked.
So I will say, I mean, I completely agree with everything that you said about the fact that she really hasn't wrestled in 6.5 years. It's very much to be expected that she's going to have a little bit of ring rust. But I have to say, for somebody that had a little bit of ring rust, I got the feeling when I was watching her, it's one of those things where it's like riding a bike and you never forget how to ride a bike. I feel like I got that vibe from her when I was watching the match. Like she was a little rusty. It was a slower paced match in some ways, but I got that feeling anytime she got offense in. I was like, okay, she remembers how to do this. She knows what she's doing. She still gave off to me that experienced vibe despite not having been in the ring for some amount of time. That being said, I mean, Britt definitely carried most of the match. And I think that being considered and just considering the momentum that she's had these past couple of years in AEW, I could see what you're saying about how I could see her getting the win making sense. I liked that Saraya got the win just because it was a feel-good moment. And I think the fact that the Elite didn't get their win on their comeback, I was like, okay, at least someone's getting their comeback win. So I was happy about that. I loved seeing Zach Zodiac in the audience. And I really loved the way that Britt Baker played up to him, the way she was like blowing kisses at him and she's going, bye, brother. I thought that her character work on that level was really fun. Her character work has just come so far these past couple of years, her as a heel, having not really worked being a heel on the indies prior to coming to AEW, I think she's come a really long way. I thought that both of these women looked phenomenal. I love, like I mentioned, the growth of the women's division, seeing two people in the ring that look like they're meant to be stars. But all in all, I had high hopes for Saraya's comeback. I really wanted to see her look good because you just know how much this match must have meant to her.
Of course.
And I think that all things considered, I thought she looked pretty good. I mean, was it super fast? Was it, like there was no ring rust at all? No, but I thought all things considered, I thought it was pretty decent. I thought she did a pretty decent job. And I thought that the more she does this over the course of, the next several months, the more she'll probably get back into the swing of things. But for someone who hasn't done this in 6.5 years, I thought she looked pretty good. And I got the vibe as she, delivered different moves. It wasn't really like a painful to watch sort of thing. It was kind of like it just came right back to her. So I really appreciated this match for what it was.
I did too. Saraya said that she's been training at Santino Brothers. Jungle Boy offered his ring to use or for her to train in, which she didn't get to use, but said that she will in the future. Tony Khan also said that Kansas was very cool about using Wayward Sons and licensing it. He won't commit to whether or not that it's going to be used in the future. But he was asked about ROH TV. He said he's considered giving them a YouTube show instead of putting them so much on AEW TV. But he says that it's a very valuable property as well. Shout out to John Alba, who is doing a great job covering this scrum. Greatly appreciate it. But yeah, we've got Samoa Joe winning the sirloin beef sons of bitches battle against Wardlow and Hobbs. I often forget that Wardlow is capable physically of the things that he does in the ring. And I thought this was going to be Hobbs winning. I thought Hobbs was going to win, and he would lead into what is 2.5 months from now in his home area which is it feels like so much longer, but AEW Revolution, which has been announced for March 5th. And that feels like way longer than 2.5 months because we're in November, and that's going to be, okay, it's 3.5 months. So we're going to end up going to that. Still feels longer than that, but I thought that's the direction it was going to go. I loved how Wardlow was effectively playing like the cruiserweight of these three guys, and it went really well with me. Samoa Joe gets the win after Wardlow powerbombs Hobbs repeatedly, and they said, like, Joe choked him out. Joe choked Hobbs out. He didn't really. Hobbs was already out, and what happened is the ref was like, well, I'm not going to let an already unconscious guy sit here in a chokehold. That's dangerous. He could die. So he called for the bell, which is wise. But Joe had cracked Wardlow with the belt, which is completely legal in this match. This was fun. This flew by. Absolutely flew by. And this was a match I was really looking forward to. And it went the way that I thought it should. This felt like it was 5 or 6 minutes. I couldn't believe that it was just a smidge under 10. But Joe winning makes him a double champion. It makes you wonder, is the Wardlow Samoa Joe singles match going to be at Final Battle? Because that's coming up very soon. Brent Lockman says the review is just meat. That's what it was, Julie. It was just meat bumping up against each other. How'd you feel?
I agree with you. I felt like this match flew by, but I was okay with that just because I feel like there was so much stuff on the card that had a lot of excitement built up to it. I feel like this match and then also the Jade Nyla match were the two that I felt were kind of like good buffer matches for some of the others. And that's kind of saying a lot because even these, both of these matches had stories leading up to them as well. I was a little bit surprised that Samoa Joe won. I felt like I didn't really have a strong sense of who they were going to keep as the winner of this one. I feel like they've hyped up Wardlow so much over these past several months. I was almost expecting that he was going to retain, but I don't mind that he lost because I do feel like it sets up the singles match for him and Samoa Joe. And I feel like now he's gained enough popularity where the loss, number one, he didn't take the pinfall or submission. But I feel like he's also gained enough popularity where now not being the champion, I feel like that doesn't really hurt him that much because everyone's so much on the Wardlow, the War Daddy train right now. I'm on the War Daddy train. So I don't feel like it really hurt him to not retain. I guess, we do have the story between him and Samoa Joe that will, I don't know how far that's really going to take us. I don't think that would take us all the way to Revolution. I don't think it's that deep of a story where it's going to take us quite that far into the future, but it'll probably take us to maybe one of the special events in upcoming weeks. And then I feel like they could set Wardlow up for something bigger after that. I mean, maybe at some point they could set him back up with MJF and they could kind of revisit that. I was kind of just surprised in some ways because I didn't really have a lot of strong feelings about who I thought was going to win. I was a little surprised that they put a second belt on Samoa Joe, but I think it worked. I think it worked. And I think the match was kind of what it needed to be, just in comparison to everything else that they had going on in the match card. I mean, something's got to give somewhere. I felt like having this be a little bit faster was okay because there was just so much other content.
Reminder, guys, get in your super chats, get in your humper chats. That's how you get your questions, your statements read on the air. We are a largely super chat driven show. So do it. Give us money. We'll talk about the stuff that you like. We'll talk about the stuff that you hate. Maybe we'll agree with you. Maybe we'll bury something. You never know. We've got the next match set up. Darby and Sting against Jarrett and Lethal. Before that, we have a super chat from Michael Keys. He says, "Oh no, Punk went off." Wait, wrong month.
my goodness.
Full disclosure, like I hate to use the term PTSD because I don't think that's fair for what I do. I cover wrestling. But ahead of All Out, I was like, man, I am not looking forward to covering that show because I was like, the MJF thing happened and it was a nightmare to cover and a nightmare to decipher what's real, what's not real, when did it become a work, etc. And I was like, well, it can't get any worse than that. And then as we were on the air, CM Punk goes off. And then while we're on the air, and I had told Julie at the time, let's keep it to 90 minutes. About an hour in, Julie realized we're probably going 2.5. And she was covering for me that whole time. It couldn't possibly get any worse than last time. So today is a breeze in comparison. But Darby and Sting defeated Jarrett and Lethal, although Satnam Singh was heavily involved in this match. For as bad as Satnam Singh's debut was, he has been very good in the role in which they have placed him. And that includes one of the most goddamnedest spots I have ever seen in my life in this no DQ match. There's a ladder on the stage. Satnam is beside the stage. Darby does a coffin drop off the ladder, and Satnam just catches him.
That was, oh man, this whole match, I thought this whole match in general was just so much fun. First of all, I have to say, Jeff Jarrett and Sting, for their age, both of those guys just look absolutely phenomenal. Oh my goodness. I loved that spot that you just mentioned, where Satnam caught Darby and then carried him all the way back over.
This guy is not Kurgan. He is not Giant Gonzalez. He is not Giant Silva. He is not the great Khali in the ring or physically. He is capable of things that those guys aren't. Now, Khali was a runaway success for WWE, whether people want to admit it or not. And that's what AEW is hoping with Satnam. And I think that Satnam gets it more than a lot of those prototypical giants. And I think that he is moving along very well. And if they just have him do that and occasionally squash somebody, but do these good spots, you accentuate the positives, hide the negatives. And that's what you want to do more and more and more of. And I was very happy to see that. I'm also always happy to see Sting. I will never take watching him for granted. He does the dives. He did one of the most incredible double team moves I've ever seen, the coffin death drop.
Yes.
Where he does the scorpion death drop on Satnam. Darby does the coffin drop.
Incredible.
The lethal injection into the death drop wasn't great, but also I want to give Jeff Jarrett his flowers. Everybody was burying Jeff Jarrett. Everybody was like, oh, what good's he going to do? I'll tell you what good he's going to do. He's going to do exactly as good as he did in 1993. And I've mentioned this on the air before and on Twitter. Some of the best wrestling advice I ever got was from Christopher Daniels, who said, I don't do things in minute 3 that I can't also do in minute 30. And as a result, you can find exactly one botch of Christopher Daniels, like maybe ever. Jeff Jarrett didn't do anything in 1989 that he still couldn't do today, Julie. Everything that he's always been able to do, he can still do. And I thought that he showed up in great shape, in much better shape than we've seen him in like past years. He looked incredible, and he wasn't going to win this match. It wasn't going to be him, but he was effective, and he was, he ate the L to Darby and Sting, but I had a lot of fun watching this match.
I had a lot of fun too. I mean, I'm pretty sure when I was watching this match, we Googled, I was like, how old is Jeff Jarrett? He's 55 years old. He looks phenomenal.
Looks great.
For someone who's fit. I mean, he looks like at least 10 years younger than 55. Holy cow. He looked phenomenal. I always love Sting and Darby together. The fact that Sting just does these ridiculous spots, I appreciate that the guys that caught him, from the dive, they did a really good job of cushioning him, considering like where he was placed in the arena. That's
also sorry to interrupt, but it's worth noting, like Jeff Jarrett It looked like he was done. He was finally retired, it looked like, after April of 2019. He had that Rumble thing and the spot with Elias, and he did a couple things for AAA. But it looked like he was done until the GCW run this year. And now he's doing the thing with Jay Lethal against Ric Flair, and he did the match with Effie. But it looked like finally he had wrapped up his career, and he's back looking as good as a lot of other people.
I was going to say, I'm glad that he didn't wrap up his career because I think he's still got more in the tank. I mean, I think he and Jay Lethal, I like the way that they team together, and I like the way that Darby and Sting team together in the sense that I feel like the younger counterparts do a lot of the heavy lifting, and they don't push anybody to do things that are going to expose their age. I think that, Sting he has just enough cool spots in the match where you have that, that feeling of, oh my God, it's 2022 and Sting's on my TV and Jeff Jarrett's on my TV and they're in the ring together, but they don't let them do too much where it pushes them over the edge of sort of expending what they still have in the tank. I thought that we had those really cool spots that you had mentioned, the coffin drop into the scorpion death drop. We had the lethal injection into the scorpion death drop, which we had a little bit of a botch there, but I still appreciated the move for what it was. I think that they handled that as well as they could have. Jeff Jarrett, I wonder how many guitars this man goes through in 1 year.
He had agreed. I bought a guitar from the TNA shop a few years ago because they were on sale for like $25. Like, it would have been irresponsible to not get one. Yeah. And one of my cats like ran into it and broke it. So I got him to agree, and we haven't done it yet, but he's going to smash the guitar and he's going to sign the pieces, and we're going to like auction the pieces off for charity or something.
That's awesome.
We had agreed to that years ago. Hopefully we can still make it happen. Maybe in January when AEW is around, I would love to, but we'll see. But I had so much fun watching this. I could watch Sting wrestle forever. The first three guys that I saw in a wrestling ring, Ric Flair, Great Muta, and Sting. Ric Flair just wrapped up his career, I fucking hope, and doesn't have a match again. Great Muta is wrapping his up in a couple months. I will not take watching Sting for granted.
It's funny. Two other things that I wanted to mention. Number one, I really liked what they did with the entrance, with the body bag. It kind of gave you a moment of wondering what was going to happen. I like that they did the little spot with Sting appearing in the ring behind Jeff Jarrett. I thought that was fun. I also wanted to know, I know Sting has wrestled a lot of his recent matches wearing a shirt. And it's funny because I have so many people that are going, take the shirt off. I've never seen so many people want to see an older man wearing a singlet before, but there's a lot of people that have that sort of what's nostalgia. They have the nostalgia thing for Sting, and I just love anytime I get to see him on my TV and relive that nostalgia and see that he still looks really good. He looks really good for his age. He really does. And I love the pairing of him and Darby together as well, just because I've mentioned in some of the previous podcasts, I like that AEW uses the star power of their veterans to boost the younger guys. But I love that they're actually really bonded in real life as well, and that they ride together, and that it's not just an act for TV, that there's something real beneath all of that. I really appreciate the authenticity.
Christian Perez says, if I'm in Chicago this Wednesday and we get an FCM Punk chant, there's truly no loyalty in this business. I mean, that would be surreal. That would be surreal. Guys, get in your super chats, get in your humper chats. We are heading to the world title matches. But before we head into those, here's a word from our sponsor, Miracle. Try miracle.com/Fightful. What is that? Well, I'll tell you what it is. Get you off those dirty sheets. Not us, not Fightful, but those dirty sheets that you're sleeping on with all that bacteria. Miracle brand protects and prevents up to 99% of bacteria, requires 3 times less laundry. They've got those silver-infused fabrics originally developed by NASA that keep your sheets feeling good. They got 500 thread count sateen weaves that's got some of the best cotton in the world. It's better for your skin, help avoid stuffy noses, allergies, acne, a lot of those things that those bacteria on your sheets will help cause, and you don't want that. Try miracle.com/Fightful. Get a free 3-piece towel set and save 40%. That's trymiracle.com/Fightful and use that code Fightful. Jamie Hayter is the new interim women's champion. It is so totally her time. Jacob McRae says, shout out to Hayter Storm. They kept Storm strong, but gave Jamie what she needed and deserved. This show ruled. And Christopher Hart says, was there live? Hayter was over. Saw some AEW wrestlers on the side of the curtain cheering on Hayter as she won. I was actually told that. I wouldn't say curtain sellout, but people could see AEW wrestlers physically watching this match. It's Jamie Hayter's time. I think that Toni Storm has been an incredible interim champion, and she has truly risen herself to the top. For so long in AEW, the people that were brought in or ascended to that level were given always the bridesmaid, never the bride type of thing. Like we saw that with Ruby. We saw that with Jamie. We saw that with Toni. And then Thunder Rosa gets the title, and a lot of the title stuff is put on the back burner. She gets hurt, and the title gets cooking. Jamie Hayter gets over big time. Toni Storm gets over big time. You've got Britt Baker moving out of that title scene and bringing back a household name in Saraya. Meanwhile, Nyla, who has also been in that, not always the bridesmaid, she's a former world champion, putting over another champion. So right now, you've got so many pieces that are being pushed in top-level feuds. And you got the actual champ Thunder Rosa, who isn't even back yet. Who knows how things are going to go then? I love the way this match went. Toni Storm gets busted open, and it added a lot. Even though it wasn't intentional, it added so much. We had the short pile drivers. Then it went into what could be considered some overbooked territory. But Jamie Hayter didn't really need Britt and Rebel till the very end. That turnbuckle being exposed is what did it. And Jamie Hayter gets the win. I'm so happy for Jamie. I'm so happy for Toni, because a lot of baby faces would get shook, Julie. A lot of them would be like, well, damn, they're cheering for my heel opponent. What does this mean for me? No, we still like you, Toni. You're still awesome. You're great in the ring. You're mega charismatic. You are a star. And the audience, they like her. They just like Jamie a little bit more. And that's okay, because Toni's going to get cheered this Wednesday. I thought this was wonderful. I've got question marks about Britt. I don't know what's going to happen. We getting the old thumbs up, thumbs down from her this week with Rebel carrying Jamie around on her shoulders. How's it going to work out? I can't wait to hear what you think of this.
I absolutely adored this match for a number of reasons. Number one, I liked that there was a real backstory between Toni Storm and Jamie Hayter. The fact that they were roommates during the pandemic, they were best friends. I like that was something that was brought up regularly, because I feel like sometimes there's these stories that happen in other places prior to the superstars being in AEW, and we don't really get the full backstory on AEW TV. So it's like, unless you have been following these people for years, you don't really know the backstory, and you don't fully then get the significance of the match. I like that they talked about it week after week on TV, so that even though we didn't see those times between Jamie Hayter and Toni Storm, it was emphasized to us enough where we understood what their previous relationship was. The other thing that made me really happy was, I feel like with AEW being a newer company, we've seen a lot of growth in the women's division these past couple of years. We've had a lot of people asking for more growth in the women's division, and I feel like this was a match that really delivered. And when I was watching, I was saying out loud, I was like, okay, this is the type of women's wrestling that I have been wanting to see in AEW. This is the caliber of what I've been wanting to see. This is finally setting the bar for what I hope is to come in the future. And I agree with you. When I first saw Rebel make an appearance ringside, I was a little bit like turned off because they were having such a good match anyways up until that point that I was like, does she really need the help in order to win? But then as it unfolded and Britt came out too, I felt like the help was minimal enough where it didn't downplay Jamie's abilities. And there were, moments where it kind of got into that overbooked territory of like near fall after near fall after near fall. But I think ultimately, there was that exposed turnbuckle that helped Jamie with the win. But I feel like it wasn't enough interference that undermined what she had already done on her own. And I actually thought it was very interesting to see the way that Britt reacted at the end of the match. I liked that everyone was kind of happy for Jamie and let her have her moment, because I feel like this moment was a little bit overdue. I know everybody had really been vying to see this at All Out, and now we're finally getting it. So I'm glad that they let her have her moment, and that if there is some drama that starts to unfold between Jamie and Britt, that can kind of happen over the course of the next several weeks. I think that there's a lot that you can do now with Jamie as champion. There's a lot of fresh matchups that I would like to see. And then,
like what's up with Thunder Rosa? Will Saraya get an opportunity?
I would love to see it. And when Ruby Soho, whenever she's back in the picture as well, you had mentioned her as being someone that we've discussed in the past as being kind of always a bridesmaid, never a bride. I want to see Ruby Soho and Jamie Hayter and
Athena's emerging as a heel now.
So many people that I think you could put in there with her that would put on great matches and potentially great stories as well. So, I mean, kudos to these two women. I think, Toni Storm getting busted open, that wasn't an intentional blading moment, but it did add something to the match. The combination between her bloody nose and the red lipstick was just like, for me. I liked the realness of that. And I think you just had two women in there who were total technicians tonight. And I was just so happy to see it, because I feel like this set the precedent for the women's division in AEW.
We got a great super chat from Rory Bison. Says, normally I send him my money for MJF, but tonight is all about our queen and new AEW champion, Jamie Hayter. Awesome match despite the extra stuff. Just shows how much we love her. Rory, I thought it was a great performance from her. I thought it was the right place, the right time, all that stuff. Jamie Hayter said that she'd love to wrestle Britt Baker. She thinks friendship makes for good competition as well. Tony Khan reiterated that he is evaluating the interim women's title situation and giving Rosa every chance he can to have her come back. And I mean, that's the thing is, I think that whenever Rosa comes back, maybe Jamie Hayter's stance on wanting to work with Rosa has changed, but I can tell you that she was not thrilled with Thunder Rosa and how their match went down. Absolutely not. I'd be thrilled with you guys if you would leave us a thumbs up as opposed to a thumb down. Also subscribe to FightfulSelect.com. This week is an absolutely loaded weekend. We had an ongoing scoops thread, like about who was helping out produce some of the women's matches tonight, who was backstage at the show. House of Black was there. Marco Stunt was there. Being the Elite news, Kansas news, AEW video game news, all kinds of stuff. We had updates on Bowens throughout the weekend and him working his injury, some other celebrities that were set to be there. But also, we had a Full Gear pre-show. We do those for every major pay-per-view. We had names of people who were in town. We had SmackDown plans last night. We had all kinds of stuff. Tomorrow's the special return of Figure Hall. Right now, Alex is doing a Sour Graps review. All this for just $5 a month. $5 heckin' bucks a month. multiple times a day, not just once a day. You get exclusive news that comes there first, but multiple times a day. You get an average of one podcast a day as well. So tons of stuff for your $5. I do a Q&A there every week. Grapsly's going to do one there this week. Best $5 in the business. I promise you won't regret it if you just check it out. And I have some people say, who would pay for wrestling news? I get it. Some of you aren't conditioned to doing that, but it's a lot more than that. It's interacting with our community, checking out our great podcasts. You get this stuff sent directly to your email, to your phone. You're not getting it second, third, fourth hand, which I often have to message those people and correct. Fightfulselect.com. But we do have Swerve's cousin up in the dirt sheets, as Max Caster said. Will Washington, who is Swerve's cousin, was streaming the scrum for us. And he was the subject of a line in their rap video this past week. And Max Caster, when asked about that, said, oh, well, we don't plant stories in the media about how cool we are. I can tell you I've never experienced that with Swerve, and I've spoken with him. If anything, he'll try to throw us off the scent of whatever we're on to. But I did a really nice story on Anthony Bowens like 3.5 years ago. But I do think that was a funny line. It was good to see Will address it and take it well as well. But Swerve and Our Glory look like they're headed towards Splitsville, Julie. I was told this was the beginning of that, and I was told that it was likely going to happen. I thought more was going to happen. The Acclaimed really play the babyface in peril. There was a cool guardrail spot. They end up getting the win because Keith Lee won't do what Ray Phoenix did earlier in the night and be an asshole. Jacob McCrae says, my God, this match humped. Bowens is a star. I am constantly glad to see Bowens stepping out and getting the spotlight, Julie, because for a while it looked like it'd be Max Caster. Now Bowens is the mega overwin among the two. I love the way this played out. I cannot wait for a Swerve Keith Lee feud. Keith Lee is looking better physically than he has in a long time. Swerve makes things that aren't easy look very easy, and the Acclaimed are white hot, so they needed to win.
I agree with you. I think for me, this was a no-brainer that this needed to be an Acclaimed win. My two complaints that I have, and this is I've been loving this entire show, so I have very, very few complaints about it, I would have to say. I will say, though, I think by the time we got to this match, I think you could start to tell that the crowd was a little bit tired. And I think that the lack of daddy ass, Billy Gunn, may have contributed. I think that regardless, it was such a long show that I think at a certain point in the card, the crowd is gonna inevitably start to show some signs of wear and tear. I was just sad that we didn't have Billy Gunn at ringside. I know he made his little cameo appearance during the match, but I think having his presence there, I absolutely love the Acclaimed, but having his presence is just like the little icing on the cake. I could have used more Billy Gunn. I absolutely love what Swerve and Our Glory has done these past couple of months. We were actually having a discussion here as we were watching the show, how good Swerve is and how amazing his facials are, his reactions to everything. He's one of those people that, looking back on his release from WWE, I am just dumbfounded as to how you release somebody like that. But
I couldn't believe it.
Luckily for AEW, I think that they've been able to capitalize on that. The other complaint that I had, aside from just like the crowd fatigue sort of showing a little bit in this match, was,
and I do want to highlight that before we move on. In Simmons says crowd was tired by this time, but I really enjoyed Keith Lee being the one to turn on Swerve and not the predictable route. Crowd was a little cooked by this point.
Yeah. A little fatigued. The other thing, I like that we are getting the friction between Swerve and Keith Lee. I think we all knew that this was going to happen. It was a matter of when, not if. The only thing that I disliked, I feel like you could have planted the seeds for it. Like you could have had the disagreement during the match without Lee leaving completely. Because I think when he leaves completely, it sort of gets you questioning, well, yeah, he's got beef with his partner, but are you going to leave a championship match on pay-per-view? Like, would you rather win the match and kind of be at odds with your partner and at least be the champion? That was the one logistical element of it that I didn't love. I mean, I think regardless, the friction between them was going to happen. I just wish that maybe they had planted the seed without him abandoning ship completely, because at that point I'm like, well, don't you at least want to win the championship?
Fair point. Fair point. In Simmons, actually, we just read that one. But, man, I think the right person won. The right duo won. And I can't wait to see Lee and Swerve, because it's a feud where somebody is going to get kicked into the stratosphere, and I think it's going to be Swerve. I think Swerve is headed towards the top. I think he's going to be a crossover star. I think he's going to be really, really good in this role, and I think that this is the turn that he's wanting, that will send him there. And him, like that just evil smile that he has.
Oh yeah, his
perfect.
facials are just so on point. And I mean, he looks like a star. The way that he sells things, his quickness in the ring, his agility, he is a win for AEW for me. He is a gold star signing.
Gabriel says, Keith doing what he did was perfect. What will follow will be great. Slap that smug look off his face and thank Sean. The past 3 years, you've distracted me. Helped me hold my shit together. My God, guys, you guys have helped me hold my shit together for the last 6+, and hopefully it doesn't end anytime soon. I'm signed through 2030, so I'm here for a while.
Woohoo!
So let's hang out every night and talk about wrestling. But Gabriel, I agree. Like that smile, the facial that Julie was talking about, like you want to see him get that come up, and you want to see like Keith Lee just wring his neck. You just want to see it happen. Oh, it was so good. And it's going to be good. And I can't wait to see the in-ring chemistry that these guys have as well. Well, I know one thing. You can have better body chemistry with athleticgreens.com/Fightful. Look at this.
Here we go.
Look at this. 1 year free supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. I take those with me, the little individual packets whenever I'm on the road. It helps out so much. And you might say, oh, well, gee golly, Sean, what does this do? Well, you want to drink your multivitamin. You don't want to be taking a tablet. That stuff will just stick in your body and just pass right through without you absorbing what you really need. And what you really need is 75 vitamins, mineral, whole food sourced ingredients that have a multivitamin, multi-mineral, probiotic, green superfood blend, and more in one convenient daily serving. That special blend of high-quality, bioavailable ingredients in one scoop of AG1 fill those nutritional gaps and replace a bunch of products and pills with one healthy, delicious drink. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, it's got less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals. They have changed this formula over 50 times in the last decade. So once every few months, they adapt with science, and athleticgreens.com/Fightful gives you those dairy-free probiotics, the vitamins, the minerals, the adaptogens, the antioxidants. You want to drink this stuff first thing in the morning. Get it in your body. You are good to go. It's helped my energy levels. I've mentioned on the air that I've cut my caffeine intake in half, and it is, I would say, strictly because of athleticgreens.com/Fightful. Very, very happy with how it makes me feel. Reminder, guys, if after this show you haven't had enough, if you just want to keep going, Alex has sour graps going on right now on FightfulSelect.com. So you can tune in and check out his show as well. He is a little more critical than we are. He is a little more sour than we are, but
I have to give really, really quick shout out though. I've been watching Alex and Kate's post show for NXT.
Sorry to hear that.
I absolutely, if you do not watch Sour Graps on Tuesdays, you need to start, because they are like the main reason that I'm following NXT right now. Their analysis of that show is absolutely so entertaining. If you don't watch them on Tuesdays, I highly, highly recommend it. So entertaining, great analysis with also being extremely entertaining and giving great impressions. If there's anything that I've learned from them, I need to start getting better at impressions.
Oh my God. If it gets us super chats,
they do
whatever.
Such a awesome job. I love watching
October, November, December are like down months for super chats. So whatever gets us the super chats, sure. But I ain't doing impressions on here. But at the press conference, Tony Khan said he's been in touch with both Adam Cole and Adam Page, Hangman Page. They're hoping to have them back soon. You can see Hangman Page next weekend at WrestleCade. I'll be there, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Fightful will have a table set up because we're doing some interviews over there. So come check it out. Come say hi to us. We would love to meet you. But MJF met his destiny tonight thanks to William Regal. This was, when I say predictable isn't bad if it's good, this is what I mean. And I had thought from the moment I got to see that now iconic promo with Regal and MJF, that MJF would tease using the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and instead Regal would toss him the Nux. And that is exactly what happened. Van Twinblade says, Uncle Billy, why? Tony says, hopefully the story will be Regal rewarding MJF not using the ring and acting like a true villain. Kylie says, I absolutely love the main event. Mox being a heel and Max the face. The Regal turn was just great stuff. If you wondered if this was like a switcheroo, a double turn, something, MJF was in full asshole heel mode at the presser. That doesn't matter, Julie. People are still going to cheer him. People are still going to love him. I thought at one point we might see like Mox go heelish, and he kind of did during the match. And, you know, we were wondering, okay, is the firm going to get back involved in this? What's going to happen? No, it's just Regal, and I think that's good. I think if the firm was involved, it would have been overbooked. And I like a lot of the parts of the firm, but the sum and what it was, I don't know if that was the original plan. I don't know if there was some adjustment in the last couple of months, but what we saw, I think from a creative standpoint, was great. We saw MJF baby facing the crowd. He motorboated a woman who
oh my God.
I know that woman. I know that woman. I've talked to her about it since it happened. She said that people were coming up and telling her she must be good luck. But and for those of you who wondered, she did provide consent. So that's all good. But shout out to friend of the show who I'm not going to say her name because I don't want creepos hunting her down. But MJF sold like a babyface through this. Was this the ending you expected?
For me personally, it was not the ending. I was expecting there to be some sort of shenanigans at some point. When you mentioned the firm, we were kind of talking predictions here as we were watching the show. And I was kind of wondering if there was going to be some further firm involvement following their attack on MJF, if maybe like that had been a ruse of some sort and that they were still associated in some way. I didn't foresee the Regal turning and tossing him the brass knucks. I thought that was such a creative genius way of ending the match. And I have to agree with what you said. I think at this point, MJF can do whatever he wants. I mean, I think if he wants to go full out heel like we know him in the past, or if he wants to kind of play on the babyface thing like he did in his entrance tonight, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Yes. When he goes back backstage and re-enters as like this hyped up baby face, and him going up to people in the crowd and just being so over the top. I think he can just do whatever he
That's
wants.
one way of putting it.
I think he can just do whatever he wants at this point. And honestly, no matter what he does, the audience is gonna love to hate him. It's just I love that he's embracing that, and he's having fun with it, and he's kind of playing up this like fake baby face thing, because I think he's just on that level where no matter what he does, if he wants to turn and he wants to, go back to being a full-on heel, it really doesn't matter because we all still love him.
Yeah.
But I thought this match was very interesting. We were actually chatting here about the fact, and I don't know if other people thought about this at all or picked up on this at all. I believe it's the 25-year anniversary of the Montreal Screwjob. And so we thought that there may have been some subtle references to that. I know something that was mentioned was Moxley's gear. It was a little bit different than what he normally wears, and we were talking about the skull that he had on his gear, and also just like the ending of the match, the Regal tossing him the brass knucks, the MJF going up the ramp with the security, very similar to HBK and Earl Hebner back in the day. We were wondering if there may have been kind of some like incognito callbacks to that as well, just being that it's the anniversary. I loved this match. I mean, this pay-per-view really didn't do me wrong in a lot of ways. I figured that this was going to be MJF's time to get the win. The fact that he was in home territory, I feel like it would have definitely been the wrong move to not give him the win. But I'm really excited to see, because I think we've had a lot of people as world champions that have kind of been of more of a veteran status. And now we have someone who's only 26 years old and he has so much in the tank. I feel like there's just limitless opportunity in terms of what you can do with him now.
Youngest AEW champion ever. Jacob McCrae says, I love Regal with MJF, but I hope BCC doesn't disband. Hope it becomes a dynasty in AEW. Like so many things in AEW and so many ideas, I think it started off really strong and then it fizzled and it lost its way. It was to help add to the next generation of badasses, and Wheeler Yuta has been de-emphasized an awful lot, and Daniel Garcia has been de-emphasized an awful lot on the Yas end of things over the last few weeks. I feel like that sort of lost its way a little bit, but I also think that Moxley might be headed for a vacation too, so I guess we'll see. But Hugh Janus says, can we get rid of the loser wearing red trope? New MJF was winning straight away. That said, great match and great show. I think it's just a coincidence, buddy. That's it. Guys, get in your super chats and humper chats. We are heading down the home stretch. VS Della says, Sean, love everything you do, but why the hell is this the first time I'm seeing Julie? Good Lord, she is beautiful.
Thank you. That was a beautiful night. Thank you.
Is Regal turning on BCC, or do you think it was more of a tip of a cap? Why is this your first time seeing Julie? I don't know. It's probably the first time you've watched one of our AEW pay-per-view post shows, because she's pretty much a regular at this point. I just assume I'm going to do these with her from now on. And I think Regal's turning on BCC. I don't think there's a tip of the cap that involves him passing a brass knuckle to somebody and getting somebody knocked out. I think it's a turn. And Brent Lockman says, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. MJF wasn't talking about himself. Love that ending. That's the thing. Like, he played everybody. Now, I kind of like babyface leaning MJF. If they try to force him to be a heel, we're going to go into like reverse Cody territory. And I don't know if that's the right one.
I think you just need to lean into what the fans are telling you, because I feel like, I mean, towards the end of Cody's AEW run, I feel like the fans just wanted a heel turn from him so badly. And I feel like I don't recall when he said this, but I know he had kind of reflected on his AEW run a little bit since he left, and I don't feel like he acknowledged that was in the cards for him, but I feel like that's just naturally what the people were asking for. And so I feel like Jericho has said this himself, that a lot of ideas that he has developed over time were things that just kind of happened on the fly and stuck. And so I think sometimes you just need to roll with it. You just need to call an audible and roll with what the people are telling you if you want it to work. And so I think MJF, I think he's very, very smart in this business. And so I think he will do that. I think that he will roll with what the people are sort of edging him to do. But I think he's going to play us a little bit while he does it.
Guys, I want to thank you so much for the support. As I mentioned, November, December, January, kind of down months for Super Chats, but you guys have been really good to us tonight. Gotham Guy says, much like in great storytelling, you guys, or you have to give people what they expect, but not in the way they expect it. I think the main event just did that. That is a wonderful way of putting it. I think that's a fantastic way of putting it. And I think that's a more eloquent way of putting it when I say that, like, predictable isn't bad if it's good. We knew this was going to happen. I think it's going to lead to MJF still trying to convince us that his contract is up on January 1st, 2024, and holding the title through then, and maybe holding the title up and holding the title hostage. But we're not going to hold you guys hostage any longer. A 2-hour post show. I want to thank Luis for doing some moderating. I want to thank Will Washington, who is live at the scrum. I want to thank Denise, who always has great videos of the scrum, individual videos. Please support her work. She pays money out of pocket to go to those things and do them on her channel. So support her. John Alba did a great job live tweeting the scrum as well, which really helped us. And Robert DeFelice picked up a lot of that, like those notes. But Jeremy Lambert, Colin, Skylar, and the rest of our team that did great work on the articles, and Kyler, who does great social media work, Rob Wilkins, and our team who did the preview show. Big thank you to everybody at Fightful. I really, really love this team. And Julie, you've become quite a nice part of it on these AEW post shows. Tell the people where they can find you.
Of course. So I am on Instagram. I am at the Crown Jewels. Crown is with an E at the end. It's the old English spelling. That's just how we roll. And I have a very exciting appearance coming up in just a couple of weeks. If you are in Central Florida and you would like to come and meet me in person, I will be at Pro Wrestling Action Winter Wonder Slam, which is going to be Friday, December 16th at the Eastmont Civic Center in Altamont Springs. And this is going to be a really cool show because this promotion has had a lot of people that have been featured on AEW Dark that have become household names in wrestling. So if you want to see the next big up and coming names in professional wrestling and you are in Central Florida, this is the place to do it. Go follow me on Instagram, follow their Instagram page at Pro Wrestling Action, and you can get information about tickets for upcoming show.
Check her out. We adore Julie here. We always love having her on. Hopefully we can have her on more. Guys, thank you all so much. These post AEW shows always go long. We're always up till 2 or 3 in the morning. But my God, there's so much content surrounding it. And okay, did I like us making like a lot of money off of those shows? Yes, but I am very glad that I am not covering somebody's dog getting picked up or kicked into a door or anything this week. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, we're out.